Amazon, a company that many of us are looking up towards, states customer obsession as their leadership principle number one, saying that leaders need to start with the customer and then work backwards. And actually we also had yesterday the quote from Steve Jobs saying that get closer than ever to your customer, so close that you tell them what they need before they even realize it themselves, what they need. And throughout the sessions yesterday, we heard about the importance of a targeted, orchestrated, personalized customer experience. And we also heard some funny examples of the experience if that is not happening, if customers are bombarded left and right with messages that do not make sense or that do not relate to previous engagement. So all in all, we know what we should do, but now the question is, how concretely do we do it? How do we make it happen? How do we put the right infrastructure in place in terms of data, in terms of content, in terms of channels, to be able to track what our customers like, what they dislike, in terms of content types, content formats, channels, and how do we then act upon those insights in our next engagement? And ultimately, how do we measure that we are successful in our endeavor? So that is the topic of our panel today. Welcome to our panel called Do They Like You? Assess, track, and measure consistent high customer engagement. I'm joined by an expert panel that will bring very different perspectives from a data point of view, content point of view, and channel point of view. So with that, I'd like to start off and really to set the scene. The first question that we'll discuss is where are we today as an industry when it comes to this topic? And maybe you could start by introducing yourselves and sharing a little bit about your personal experience in this arena.
Thanks, Adela. Hi everyone. I'm Vanitha. I'm from Novo Nordisk. And in Novo, I am driving the modular content tagging and insights workstream. And Adela, it's interesting that you ask this question in 2022. And Novo as a company is 100 years old in 2023. That means we have been selling insulins to our customers for around 100 years, means we are actually engaging with our customers. But today, this year, we're asking, what does it take to deliver high quality or high value customer engagements? So when I was reflecting on this question, my experience is primarily, of course, in the content space. But 5 years back, when I embarked into this whole customer engagement journey in Novo, what we really thought about is, hey, we have been engaging with our customers for so many years, so how can we make it more sustainable? How can we create a sustainable model as we scale our engagement? So we had an aspiration which says we want to increase the breadth and depth of our customer engagements to enable more meaningful and efficient customer engagements. We built something called as the MC ecosystem or customer engagement ecosystem, and it had 4 pillars. Of course, the strategic pillar, how you strategize about your customer engagements. Then it had the content pillar, what efficiencies you can create around content. And then you had the marketing automation pillar, which is primarily the platforms. How can you deliver your content across different channels in a more scalable, sustainable way? And the last pillar was, of course, data. We had to, of course, measure and optimize and elevate the customer experience. So our experience was to lay this foundation in order to deliver high quality or high value customer engagements.
Thank you very much, Vanitha. So picking on data, maybe moving to Ali to share your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ali, I'm the head of data, digital and technology at Takeda. And really we're on this journey, and similar to all of you yesterday, we had the poll, where does everyone sit in terms of omnichannel engagement and the strategy in general. And we're on this journey as well, and we're really picking up on new ways of working, how we can obviously use a foundation of data. Where do you start? Where is a good point to progress? We've also got a similar strategy where you have a building block across different elements to this strategy as well. But what we've done quite successfully is, think about ways that you can leverage data, analytics, advanced analytics, and also building the foundation as well. And the real next steps for us is how to push this forward even more. And just to comment on a few kind of things that we're seeing at Takeda is, you have to have this positive mindset change. And this change really comes from leadership, but also across all the affiliates as well. And obviously I'm coming in speaking about data, and I won't bore you with data governance, etc. But it's an important element. It's nothing to hold you back, but it's something to really keep in mind as you explore these new use cases, and obviously provide more value to your customer engagement. And I think we've spoken about this in this conference, and a few of you and some colleagues. There is this necessity for this test and learn mindset. The ability to be vulnerable with failure, the ability to be agile, the ability to obviously move and learn from other people as well within the organization. And this is something that we've built on, and it's something that we want to continue to take that forward.
So data is a foundational element of an empirical customer understanding,
exactly.
Maybe moving away from market research, but really empirically understanding what your customers actually do, and then embracing this test and learn on the fly approach, which is quite new for pharma, right? We're taking this from the startup industry. Nataliya, would you like to add your perspective?
Yes, sure. My name is Nataliya Andreychuk. I am CEO of Viseven company. We are more than 12 years in this space. We are a pharma tech agency. We provide from content to omni-channel strategy. We have the platform, which is a wizard, which accelerates content production, modular content, Viva-enabled services a lot. And we have the services around, which means modular content services for content production, digital content factory, as well as omni-channel factory. So this is a hybrid model which we help our customers to optimize their operations in this phase. And I think with this saying, the most important focus is that you have today every piece of this MarTech established in your organization. So you have to begin with the basics, with the housekeeping, to understand which piece is not in place. Otherwise, any trendy words about modular content, connected content, AI-empowered content and interaction, customer engagement will be just a buzzword. So this is what we are doing. We collaborate with our client to help to understand them. If they do have the basics, to go into the journey. So if they have the right integrated channels in place, if they have all the software and human capacity to swallow the data and to bring them into the actionable insight, if they mentally and organizationally ready to go into the insight-driven framework instead of the decision-driven or blockbuster-driven framework. So, and we are not alone. In our journey, we collaborate with other agencies because it is important. I do not believe personally on the dog which is standing on the post. Like I do really believe in collaboration between the agencies, like bringing this innovative idea into life. You have to be aware that your ecosystem is not depending 100% of one idea, that you leverage the ideas, that you have as many POC. There was the previous session, excellent question about budget, as the budget and the capacity allows you. So this is what we are doing, and hopefully helping our customers to succeed.
So how do you move from buzzwords and the fancy terms to really making it happen? And you need proper solutions, such as what you guys are proposing and partnering in general. So thank you so much for sharing this initial perspective on what's the starting point. So also what you see as being next, sort of on your roadmap of omni-channel customer experience and really being tailored to their needs.
I can speak from a content perspective because I'm super heavily involved in creating innovation in that space. So modular content as a concept itself is designed to deliver to deliver omni-channel customer engagements at scale with agility and impact. So my focus primarily has been to deliver and create that ecosystem of content discipline, whether it's claims, whether it's talking about content itself, the copy, or even the footnotes, or every little piece of content. It has to be highly disciplined so that it's not redundant. And if you want to engage with your customers with a different tone or a different way of selling to them from an emotional perspective, also gets added into that content building block. So now when marketeers want to execute their content broadly and widely to different customer groups, because even we as a company are diversifying, so initially we were only focusing on endocrinologists, but now we are moving towards cardiologists, primary care physicians, nephrologists. So all our markets are targeting different customers, and I'm sure for other pharma companies who have a diverse portfolio need to target different customers. So having this content discipline, what it does is you are able to personalize content to your different customer group very quickly, because they're all pre-approved pieces of content, and it also comes with embedded data. So in the content space, it's again very unique and innovative, because I've realized that we are not tracking data on content, right? So I'm also embedding in that building block a content category, a content key message, a content subcategory. So it travels all the way across your communication and will lay the foundation for giving granular insights about your customer preferences, their behavior, with the content dimension of the content lens. So you will exactly know if you send an email with a call to action, what drove that click-through rate. Today we all know the click-through rate, we know the open rate, right? Now, what is that content category which drove that click-through rate? So that's been my drive or focus, I would say, as a next action for delivering meaningful customer engagements.
And that's so nice, Vanitha, to have this very strong content perspective. I was so happy that you actually joined this panel. As I think all too often, and I know if you guys can relate with us, but there is an initial strong focus on sort of technology infrastructure and channels. And then sometimes face the situation that you have a Ferrari infrastructure, such as tools like Salesforce Marketing Cloud that allow you to do trigger-based personalization, which is great. But then if you do not have this modular content flexibility, you end up not doing much, because the core piece is really missing. Just going a little bit outside of the script. So modular content, how long did it take you to actually implement it? Well, I think that's also a fancy word for many people.
This is a trigger point, right? So I joke around saying I'm a self-proclaimed commercial scientist because it's taken a long time. It is taking a long time. It requires a lot of, Ali just mentioned that it requires a lot of patience, endurance, persistence. You can use all those Zen words to describe the effort behind this modular content. It's not an easy journey, but the good part is, at least in Novo, we had spent a lot of time laying the foundations, because of which it made it a little easier. And of course, great colleagues. So I have like a couple of colleagues here, Audrey and Brian, whom I partner with at a regional level. It's also a mix of people, processes, and platforms. So it has been a long journey and more to go.
Thank you for sharing this experience.
Yeah, I may add, because this is also our space. So what I want to add to Vanitha's words, first of all, applause for what was done in Novo, because we were witnessing that a lot, and because we are partnering in this journey. So, but I want to say that this modular content and everything about is a continuous process, because whenever you start with taxonomy, it never ends. It's a continuous journey. Then you start with tagging. This work is continuous journey. So you can't say like this is the action which will ever end it. If you are in modular content journey, so you are in the beginning, because first of all, if you decided to integrate the channels, you have the offering tool like our Wizard for the highlighting in the vault approval system, the highlighted already approved things or not. You have the system which is publishing the channel agnostic content. You have everything in place, but this means only beginning, because every piece of this journey, every module is continuous. So you will establish several teams, Like your content factory has to be connected to your multi-channel factory and to your data scientists and to your librarians and to your vault team. So everyone is connected. First of all, you have to kill the silos. So silos will be killed, everyone connected, then tools and technology and people will start to produce. So from my perspective, this is no ending journey, and up to the question, what is next? We are living in this just developing future. So as we are right now changing from the usual way, we are producing content to the modular way. So we do not stop on modules like they are now, because they are now just the very first versions of them, because they are not empowered by any automation yet, because they are not self-translated yet, they are not self-recognized yet, they are not self-placed in the right place yet. Everyone is doing right now is pretty manual. So, and the biggest task today is to automate any time you can see where you can automate.
Very interesting. So definitely a long-term journey. Maybe could you just elaborate a little bit more on this last piece when you say going from manual to automated?
Yes, of course. Like, you know, let me go not far away in the future. Let me go like into the present. When you were like only yesterday thinking about publishing process or distribution, it was a nightmare because it was a long governance and many managed assistant hours of work to publish somewhere some piece of content. And we understand like agencies are not earning their money publishing something, they are earning on creative stuff, the same the developers earning on the programming stuff. So this piece automated today by the most vendors. So that was a fundamental change for the industry, because this automation opened the connection to like lot of third-party systems, like Salesforce Marketing Cloud as an example, right? Then Adobe, Amazon Pinpoint, a lot of other systems which we never were thinking about are open today by only automation of the small piece, publishing process. And now imagine you automate translation. How many hours of the repetitive work you will be killing by automating translation, by giving this AI machine just to understand what was translated, to find on your memory server with the translated before text, the piece which was done before. Now understand how this is the slightest piece which is on the surface, and everyone with the technology survey could really take this. Or the planning. Like there is still no very good, the best experience of planning, because you can see account planning, content planning, and multi-channel, omni-channel campaign planning, they are still apart. So this planning is happening in different instances, different tools. So there is no possibility to make a concrete drill down from your plan to your piece of content and to the execution. I think many of us understand this, and this is on the surface. It's today, it's even not tomorrow, it's today.
So a wealth of opportunities out there with right partners, such as Nataliya's company, and it's interesting to also see, yes, how many opportunities there are to remove process waste so that we can ultimately really focus on the customer and customer centricity. Ali, from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I think we've spoken a bit about modular content, and I think from our perspective, we've really focused on personalization. So we've, of course, it's interesting because we built the infrastructure that we can look at key messages, tagging content, and also understand how that resonates. But we're still in the position of that personalization aspect. So we've been largely focused on enriching our current clusters of customers that we're currently using. And we're doing that with the data that we currently have, looking at interaction data. But then, of course, as I said before, this shift towards understanding our customers in a closer way. So bringing in attitudinal and behavioral insights from the field, and really integrating that in a way to move away from, you know, this static experience to more of an omnichannel and kind of seamless experience. And this is something that we've seen really benefit the teams, because you still need, I mean, of course, you still need to have the personas before you have your modular content, and of course you need to have the infrastructure there so you can actually make sense of the data and the metrics that are associated with that. But I think what we're seeing is that perspective of really getting deeper and seeing how that really affects our campaigns and our journey-based perspective as well. And just in terms of the data that came from these initiatives, we're seeing more interactions. We're moving into a world where we are trying to mobilize different channels. We're seeing, interactions, different engagements with new customers. And also, I think this theme of hybrid engagement, how we move towards that, is something that we've seen as a result of this as well. And I think just to comment in terms of moving forwards, in terms of metrics, just to stay on topic. So, of course, because we have this infrastructure, we've integrated a measurement framework with all of our teams, and that really formalizes an approach to understand how your initiatives, your omnichannel initiatives are actually working or not. And we start with reach metrics, we obviously have channel metrics, the more traditional, and then we're obviously moving into more of the surveys. And then, of course, the idea is once you have this foundation, it's what's the impact? And really delivering for each of these personas across all of these journeys, what is the behavior change that you're actually measuring? And who does that measurement as well? And then finally, as I said before, it's how do you measure that impact based on this change? And then that comes with the data. That comes with this, the idea of having these data foundations in place, but also thinking about how you can enrich it. So we're speaking to our teams in terms of marrying this HCP longitudinal data with the impact. Maybe at the brick level, you can get it to the hospital level, so you can really measure it. So you can really say, okay, my campaigns or my journeys are really having an effect. And I think with those foundations in place, we can speak about what's next. And that comes with modular content, but of course it comes with AI and data analytics, and we can maybe touch on that a bit later.
Making a very nice bridge, Ali, to the next question, which is indeed, yes, how do we measure and what are the KPIs, leading and lagging ones? And I think what I heard you say is thanks to the fact that you put this data foundation in place, you are already able to measure engagement. And from what I understood you saying, is that you're looking at interaction depth, and also are you gaining new leads?
Yep.
Which are interesting because, of course, we in Pharma, we do a mix of campaigns that are sort of promotional, non-promotional, so linking with sales is not always easy, so we need to look at different impact measures at times. Maybe asking the audience, how many of you are pharma companies? All right, nice. And how many of you are measuring customer engagement across channels? I mean, we know in the past, we measured, yes, Congress, did you like the event, did you not like the event? But looking sort of across the new ways of working, yes, how many of you are measuring it today? Okay, interesting. So, Vanitha, your perspective on how do you assess, track and measure consistent high engagement today?
From an engagements perspective, we do have a 360-degree view of our customers today, and that's we have a separate team of colleagues who are looking into it. So that measurement gives all the channel and the traffic drivers, like for example, if you want to know the click-through rate and bounce rate and number of visitors, all that is there, that's foundational. But from a current perspective, I have realized over the few years that we did not have that content taxonomy to measure and track the content dimension of what our content preferences are of our customers, whether the content is performing well or not. So from our perspective, laying that foundation of that content taxonomy, I call it the unified content taxonomy, is extremely critical. I'll give you an example. So many of us say Mexico or Mexico, and then it's one and the same data, but the mission will take it as two different data, because clearly, right? And I've seen that the moment you're giving a free text field for our marketers to enter key messages, there will be weight loss, there will be WL, there will be ampersand, which says safety and efficacy with an ampersand, and safety and efficacy. So we see a lot of these inconsistencies which the systems or the tech platforms will treat it differently. So that's why it's extremely important to have that discipline also in the content taxonomy. So we have, after many years of struggle, we have managed to have a set of, or defined set of core categories, defined set of subcategories, just like the Netflixes of the world, right? So we do have, like in Novo, we have these content categories. Then we also have a defined set of key messages, which is brand specific, but channel agnostic. So the way we tell is, in order to measure and track your content performance, you need to be able to have a key message that travels across all the channels, so that you get that integrated perspective of what is that content that drove that bounce rate, or what is that content that drove that click-through rate, right? So that's how I am positioning it for the content space.
And again, a very interesting perspective, because it's true, oftentimes we think about, yes, do customized emails were better than broadcast emails or things like this, but yes, you know, it is, I mean, content is king, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and it's driving engagement, and you also share that indeed it's not easy, garbage in, garbage out, and even
Absolutely.
Small details can mess it up, can mess statistics up, looking at them at scale.
I think so. So many was already said. So what I want to add here. So perhaps it's how, it's not what, it's how. One of the tips would be to marry the data from the CRM, like from the field force, and from the digital, to the field force CRM. So it's one of the most important point, like marrying this data and making sure you can orchestrate this data. You're creating insights, and then you can really orchestrate the activities. Whenever digital is falling down, you can have face-to-face, which is the most empathetic channel, still up, and otherwise vice versa. One of the tricks here we have been creating the 7 rep-triggered campaigns, which were triggered by rep, and then they go digital. So this is the new way of working. The same way, like optimize how this content intake, right? So this is the accessibility what Vanitha just touched, because not all the content is accessible directly, and this is not about channels, because whenever we have this housekeeping and we have this data structured in the right way, that would be no difference whenever you have the access from the web or you have the access from the email, so that would be the same. So there is the discipline in everything, not only how content was created, but how it was tagged, how it was distributed, published, and utilized, because if it was created once, it had to be used, utilized also once, and we have to track every interaction with it.
And it's also about this very important closed loop, right, between indeed personal and non-personal engagements, which are, for me at least, it's the biggest challenge, right? And it's really what makes you move from multi-channel to omni-channel. Because indeed doing, you know, like fancy social media campaigns and generally speaking digital campaigns is, in the meantime, I wouldn't say easy, but you know, many are doing it. But how do we indeed bring this then to the field force, and how do we create this bi-directional flow? So really what we normally call closed loop marketing.
Yeah, and how you are also empowering the sellers, because we never talk about that our insights, first of all, have to empower the sellers who are selling our products. So, and this not only to initialize them, so to give them bonuses, this is also to give them data and insight, actionable data, so they can understand what is the next best action from their side. So this is also one of the best thing to do.
Maybe a quick anecdote, also not in our script, from my personal experience on that with Viseven actually. A colleague of me and mine, so from a marketing perspective, we had a call with Viseven sales, telling them about our question mark, you know, how can we get a step further when it comes to interactive emails? We know that with Outlook you can't do much. but still we need to be better than those typical emails where the images are not downloading. So really the question that we asked to Viseven was, what are your insights there, and how could you perhaps help us to, yes, make it exceptional, make it a good experience for our customers. And so we had this discussion with Viseven sales, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, you guys were doing a webinar that you were publishing on LinkedIn. So that was for me an amazing example. I don't know if it was a coincidence, we never discussed that. But so we had an interaction with sales, we showed what customers are looking after, and a couple of weeks later, Viseven transformed this insight into a marketing webinar that was then published on LinkedIn, and I saw you had a very high attendance.
Yeah, and there is Nastya, our marketing director. She's an author of all of that.
So kudos. That's agility in practice.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is a bit of but it's linked. Yeah. So are you already turning quantitative data into insights? And maybe even somebody in the audience, if you have a cool example or an example, just share, raise your hand and share. But yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think if we bring the conversation back to obviously understanding how our customers are resonating with us. So if I go back to our kind of pathway, once you are creating these kind of clusters of physicians that you obviously understand and the field have obviously looked at and have put forward to some campaigns, it is really about how can you measure changes. And all of this is really around experimentation. You really need to see whether a physician or a customer is obviously within a certain persona. So you experiment. You obviously have your content being tagged, you have key messages, but you also bring in the metrics that we just mentioned in order to understand maybe a composite score of the interaction. But then of course you want to bring in some of the surveys as well to understand relevance, to understand transparency and trust. So we're trying to bring that all together in order to leverage advanced analytics. So then you almost begin, once you experiment with these personas, you begin to sort of do some testing, some A/B testing, so you can actually see if there's any differences within those segments as well. And then you'll be able to sort of have more of an understanding of your customers moving forwards. And something that I obviously like to bring from data science and machine learning is what's important is when you're obviously measuring success is really understanding what the objective is for your initiatives. You also need to bring the measurement framework in there. But then, finally, when you're setting those objectives, you're almost saying to yourself, okay, how do we then iterate? What am I learning from this? And I always kind of force the teams to think, okay, if you're just doing this yourself, manually, what are you doing? Are you going to a dashboard? Are you looking at what content resonated with this HCP or another one? And then I think the next thought is, of course, advanced analytics and data science, is we move away from fact-based representations and we start to predict whether a piece of content or a sequence of interactions or an event will actually resonate with a specific persona. And I think if, as I said before, once you marry the data and you bring it all together, then you can see the real value. And then you can start, of course, bringing in more snippet data and content to really bring your campaigns forward as well. So this is the way that we're thinking about it. Of course, there's other ways of doing it, but we really want to bring the advanced analytics element to it as well.
And it's a lot of playing around as well, right, if I listen to you. And you need to take the time to do so, right? So you do a campaign and then take the time to see what insights did you gain.
Yeah.
And then really also, practice what you preach and integrate those in your next campaign trigger-based journey. Additional perspectives on this one?
I think converting whether we are getting actionable insights for content data, it's a journey, at least for us. Like I can give an example, like today there are interactive detail aids, right, or the visual aids as we call it. There are several sequences or several slides of data that the marketers produce, but when you actually look into the content data, probably only the top 3 key messages are being presented or detailed by our sales reps. So what does it give? It's a feedback to the marketers that there are some detail aids which has 200 pages or even 100 pages. Do we really want to invest your effort and the money on that many sequences or that many slides, or do you really want to focus on what customers truly want to hear? right? And that's, we are on a journey there, and then we have done some early pilots with our Central European markets. My colleague Brian is smiling because it's been a journey for us. We are gathering feedback from our marketers to see if the data that they got, at least from a content perspective, is it adding value? And I think there's been an overwhelmingly positive response, and people are interested. Now they understand the value of tagging. Now I'm being like, next 2 months is super busy for us because we are going to do a lot of tagging, and because they see the value of it. And the same way, right, for emails, click-through rate, they've been seeing it for more than 2 years now, but now they are understanding, okay, these are the content categories that is giving me this click-through rate, great. Now I can optimize my content and maybe create more content targeted to a trialist or a regular user. We see across adoption ladder, we see across customer types. Again, there are a lot of filters, right? We see across content channel mix. The sky is the limit if you want to get actionable insights, but we are taking baby steps.
That's a great example of actionable insights, because oftentimes you see in dashboards, yes, good or bad click-through rates, but why? What can you actually do about that?
Absolutely.
So moving to the last question. To encourage those that may be at the beginning of this journey full of opportunities, what would you say? What are the very key concrete tips that you would give the audience in terms of what to start with in an approach of keeping it simple? But
that's a very good question. First of all, my recommendation would be not be afraid of experiment. Like, proof of concept is a very valuable approach to start things. So, which is not breaking down any ongoing operations. Going with the proof of concept, it allows you to check whenever you have the basics in-house, right? Whenever your content is connected, whenever you have the ultimate channel for your communication, whenever you have the systems which may make the offering and accelerate your content production, whenever your partners are ready to produce this end-to-end journey for you. Make this as the first step. This is the first housekeeping, I would say. The next step will lead us to the modular content, to optimization, to automation, to this content journey, which allows not only to bring the data, but also to build value-driven framework where at each stage of your journey, for every team in your organization, you will understand value, and then the data will be translated into this value, and it will be not just a marketing cockpit, it will be the value cockpit, which is helping you, your teams, to get a view they need, not a generic view of the data we usually have once in the beginning we are implementing the data-driven approach. So we need to generate the value insight which is needed to particular team, to particular product, to particular customer, and this will fire our omni-channel campaigns. This value-driven approach will really make sure like we have a fuel. Our content is a fuel, of course, but then we will generate the right content of value-based, not 100 slides, right, or whatever, then we understand. Then we take care about our sales team so they understand what is in stake, and they are very motivated and they see their values and data. And then we do our best next action. So this all leads us to the next best action. So my tips are those. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One tip from you?
Yeah, great. I think yesterday I was watching a panel and a question was asked, which was, what is the value in a percentage of revenue for omnichannel engagement? And the panel proceeded to answer this question, but there was a question that came up, which was, shouldn't you be thinking about what's the cost if you don't move towards omnichannel engagement? So I think the way that you frame your strategy and your vision is very important. And this has to come from obviously the top all the way down in terms of those who are practicing it in terms of campaigns, etc. And I think once you have that mindset, you understand that, you can also focus on things simultaneously. I've mentioned the importance of data, the governance around that, but the importance to someone who doesn't really understand the use case or doesn't really see the need to tag or doesn't see the need to really in the field to do that, you really need to show them the value of this. And you can only do that by assessing your initiatives and you showing that from their perspective as well. So that's the second part. And of course, never losing sight of the data, having that perspective of around quality and what does quality mean to you. And then of course, lastly is the mindset to improve. You need to iterate. You can't just wait for your data to be perfect. You have to start working on it in order to obviously add value in the future. So I think that's from my perspective.
Thanks, Andrew.
I think for those who are starting, approach this from the 3 Ps, right? Like people, process, and platforms. Technology is of course an enabler, and we as Novo focused a lot on that, but do not underestimate the effort that goes in driving change, you know, in the mindset of people, because that's super critical for success. Because you might have all the best platforms in the world, but if nobody's willing to use it or they are not leveraging it, then it's as good as not being successful. And processes, right? And it's again, people understand things better when they see processes in place. So also do not underestimate that part. So approach this in that way, and also think about sustainability, because whatever you test and learn and experiment has to be sustainable. So always think of the long term as well. Okay, if I set this up, is it really going to work in the future if I scale it, right? So think small, but also dream big, but think about sustainability, I would say.
And to Anita's point, so my few pennies, yes, so think big, start small, and as one of the leaders in my organization always says, measure by milestones. So do small steps, but then always show the value. So ask your field, yes, to input key messages, but show them what exactly you do with that, because oftentimes that's really where it starts failing. So thank you.